Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Pulse, where we bring you the latest gaming news, updates, and new game releases. In today's Game State update, we've got some new games coming out on GamePass, and we have new scheduling for award shows for the remainder of the year. Stick with us for the Shuffle and Deal, where Brad will break down some updates from studios and their unionization efforts. In 2024 fashion, there's yet another studio letting go of employees, so we'll cover that as well. Right after, we'll jump straight into the Gaming Sidebar, which will cover Ubisoft getting sued again. When I said Ubisoft was in a world of hurt a few episodes back, I really meant it. Then to wrap it all up, we've got your new game releases. Let's get to it. Alright, let's start this off with some useful information for our Game Pass subs out there. On November 30th, Game Pass will have 9 games removed from their lineup. The following games will be leaving: Conan Exiles, Coral Island, Hellneighbor 2, Remnant from the Ashes, Roller Dome, Soccer Story, Spirit of the North Enhanced Edition, The Walking Dead The Final Season, and While the Iron's Hot. You can still get these games for 20% off before they leave, so make sure you take advantage if you're interested. On that same note though, there's been a few additions to the Game Pass lineup. On November 20th, Soccer 2 Heart of Chernobyl, Little Kitty Big City, and for our foodies out there, Played Up has arrived. And on the 26th, Nine Souls, an awesome 2D platformer, has also landed on Game Pass. We've also got Aliens Dark Descent that's joined the lineup on the 27th. And if you missed it, the Spyro Reignited Trilogy is also available. It's all 3 classic Spyro games remastered. It's a nice clean hit of nostalgia for longtime fans. Have you ever heard of Chernobylite? If you have, we've got some awesome news. On December 13th, the complete edition of Chernobylite will be making its way to the Nintendo Switch. Now, this isn't just any version. You're getting the full base game with its non-linear story, all the content updates, extra missions, locations, weapons, quite literally everything. And if you are a die-hard fan, there's a premium edition with some sweet extras, like the soundtrack, a digital art book, exclusive weapon skins, and a themed DLC. And for those that have never heard of it, you're in for something pretty interesting. The game itself is a survival RPG that blends base building, team management, and some stealth combat. You build and upgrade a survival hub, craft weapons and gadgets, and recruit companions to help with supply runs or scouting missions. Every choice you make matters. Your decisions shape the story and your team's loyalty. This all takes place in the hauntingly atmospheric Chernobyl exclusion zone. The survival horror elements, resource management, and immersive storytelling will definitely pull you in. And now that there's a Switch version, you can quite literally take this anywhere. Now, if you're into survival games or just love a great story with the decision-making elements, this is one you don't want to miss. Again, that's going to be on December 13th on the Nintendo eShop. All right, let's jump into the award ceremonies. First, we'll talk about the Joystick Awards that already happened, and then we'll jump into scheduling for next month's award ceremonies. There's going to be 2 of them. So the Golden Joystick Awards 2024 was pretty packed with incredible moments. Let's briefly go over some of the big highlights from that award show. So Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was a total standout, winning 4 of its 7 nominations. It grabbed awards for Best Storytelling, Best Soundtrack, and Acting Awards for Cody Christian as Cloud and Brianna White as Aerith. Honestly, it's really not that big of a surprise. It's been a pretty huge hit this year. Then there's Helldivers 2, which took home 3 awards. They took home Best Multiplayer Game, Best Game Trailer, and Console Game of the Year. And they also snagged the Critics' Choice Award, which says a lot about how well the game was received. Now, the biggest surprise of the night was when Black Myth Wukong won the Ultimate Game of the Year award, which was huge for GameSign since it's their first console game. On top of that, they also won Best Visual Design. Honestly, the Visual Design Award was a no-brainer because the game just looks so beautiful. So outside of those big hitters, we also had indie games having a great night as well. This next game, Balatro, won 2 awards, including Best Indie Game and the Breakthrough Award, which is a pretty big deal. The other indie titles like Another Crab's Treasure, Lethal Company, and Chained Together also took home awards, showing how much creativity is actually coming out of the indie studios today. And let's not forget about the other awards that were given out. Minecraft and Honkai Star Rail are still going strong. They both won Still Playing awards. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree got Best Game Expansion, and the new Steam Deck OLED picked up Best Gaming Hardware. Now, if you're wondering what's next, GTA 6 won Most Wanted Game, so that hype is real. And if you're a fan of adaptations, the Fallout TV show grabbed the Best Game Adaptation. Overall, it was a really cool night, and we're really happy for those that won those awards. So let's jump over to the 2 game awards that's left for this year. The first one is going to be the Indie Game Awards, and then the second one's going to be the Game Awards Show, and that's the one with Jeff Keighley. So let's tackle the Game Awards Show with Jeff Keighley. That's going to be at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on December 13th. You'll be able to catch the show on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok Live, and even Instagram. So let's talk about the nominees. This year's lineup is pretty stacked. There is a little controversy going on with the Game Awards right now, and I'll explain it to you here in a second. So we've got titles like Astro Bot, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Black Myth Wukong. That's not the controversial part. We're, I guess, now nominating expansions for Game of the Year. So Elden Ring Shadow of Erdtree is actually up for a nomination for Game of the Year, which is weird and misplaced, I believe. So Astro Bot's going to be leading with 7 nominations. That includes Best Art Direction and Best Score and Music. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Black Myth Wukong aren't really going to be too far behind on that. They're going to get some category nominations as well. Then there's Silent Hill 2. It's a huge competition over the best performance and best music categories. For indie fans, games like, again, Balatro and Neva are shining, with Balatro even making waves in the Game of the Year conversation for indie titles. You can also expect to see most anticipated game category, and we already know that's going to go to GTA 6 and Death Stranding 2 on the beach. But Metroid Prime 4, Beyond, and Monster Hunter Wilds are also generating a bunch of buzz for that category. So if you're familiar with the Game Awards at all, you'll know that the voting system itself has been the same over the years. This year, they're going to switch it up a little bit. The winners are going to be decided by a mix of media panel votes and public votes. Your vote will make up about 10% of the total, and the remainder will go to the panel votes. It's a small percentage, but it's going to be enough to shake things up, especially in the categories that are going to be really tight races. So I'm going to kind of go back to the whole Elden Ring Shadow of Erdtree expansion nomination for Game of the Year. I'm actually really curious about how people feel about expansions and the seasonal content being eligible for Game of the Year. Me personally, I feel like there should be a whole separate category for that, just like how Joystick has it. I see that to me personally, I think there's no business for a DLC to be competing with a bunch of games that are actually games and not DLC. It could be weird. So, I mean, let's have a conversation about it in the comments. Now, again, the Game Awards is going to be at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on December 13th on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok Live, and even Instagram. So be sure to check that out when it comes. Now, for the next award show, it's going to be the Indie Game Awards. Now, this is the first ever ceremony dedicated entirely to indie games, and it's happening on December 19th at 4 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. Eastern. And this is an award show that I'm looking forward to because of the fact that indie games this year has been crazy. It's been wild. I think ever since Summer Game Fest, it's been one of the most anticipated things ever. I haven't felt this way about indie games in a while, so I'm really excited to actually see who wins and, all the new things that are going to be coming out of that award show. So as I mentioned, this is the first ever ceremony dedicated entirely to indie games. There's going to be 15 categories. There's going to be categories like innovation, emotional impact, narrative, and visual design. The nominees for the Game of the Year are 1000X Resist, Animal Well, Arco, Neva, and Nine Souls, which are three games we've heard in previous award shows, so that's going to be pretty exciting. They're all pretty much unique. It's going to be pretty groundbreaking as well. It's going to be really tough to pick a winner as well. If you want to see the full list of categories, I suggest going to the website. I've put that in the link in the description below. So here's some additional highlights that's going to be coming out of that award show as well. So there's going to be a women-led game category. It's showcasing studios led by women with games like Love, Ghosty, Mexico, 1921, A Deep Slumber, and The Crimson Diamond. Many of these you'll have seen during the Summer Games Fest that took place earlier this year. The whole event isn't just about awards though, it's also about celebrating the indie community. There will be presentations from studios like Black Salt Games and Innersloth, and the judging panel includes people from Giant Bomb, Women-Led Games, and Wholesome Games. They've really gone all out to make sure the entire indie ecosystem is represented here, so this is another reason why it's super exciting for me. So again, that's going to be on December 19th at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And for the last bit of news for the Game State update, Square Enix has just made a huge announcement. Final Fantasy XIV is coming to mobile. Can you believe it? The critically acclaimed MMORPG is getting a mobile adaptation with the help of Lightspeed Studios, the team behind PUBG Mobile. We've spoken about Lightspeed in the past. They're incredible at bringing AAA quality experiences to smaller screens, so this could be massive. Now, some things to note, we don't have a release date yet, but there is a plan. It'll first launch in mainland China and then roll out globally after that. The mobile version will debut with 9 duties from the original game, though they haven't said anything else about any additional details for content. Just the thought of having Final Fantasy XIV in your pocket, anytime, anywhere, is pretty dope. Now, Yoshi P has shared he's pretty excited for this new chapter for Final Fantasy XIV. He mentioned it's been 11 years since the game's rebirth, and this move to mobile is a huge step. Lightspeed Studios is working hard to faithfully adapt the story, duties, battles, and everything else fans love, all while optimizing it for mobile. So this is actually a pretty big deal for the MMORPG community. Adapting such a huge game to mobile is actually not an easy task, but if anyone can pull it off, it's definitely going to be Lightspeed Studios. Recently, we actually talked about Lightspeed opening a new studio, and the person that's in charge of that is actually none other than the Capcom legend Hideki Itsuno. So one of the biggest questions that's probably coming to mind right now is why mobile and why now? Honestly, it kind of makes sense. I mentioned this before, mobile gaming is exploding, especially in places like China, where mobile-first markets dominate. Plus, hardware is getting actually really good that you can get near console quality gameplay just out of your phone. This is Square Enix's way of tapping into a broader audience, and I'm definitely here for it. And of course, there's still going to be a bunch of questions that are going to be coming out of this later down the line. We'll definitely keep our eye out for any news that comes out and report it back to you guys.
Moving on, we are going on to the Shuffle and Deal news. Up first, we have former Quantic Dream writer forms new studio Republic Games. Former Quantic Dream lead writer Adam Williams has launched his own studio, Republic Games. The man behind Detroit Become Human and Star Wars Eclipse is now leading his very own studio. This is some exciting news, and to add some more, Republic Games is backed with an undisclosed investment from Krafton, the creators of PUBG. Big things are on the horizon. Republic Games isn't just another indie startup. Williams has pulled together a small but very experienced international team. We're talking about some of the top veterans in the industry. Their mission? To create a groundbreaking new RPG that's all about great gameplay, unforgettable stories, and characters you'll actually care about. Williams himself said it best. We founded Republic Games to make entertaining and meaningful experiences. We're only focused on giving players what they actually want. Great gameplay, great story, inspiring characters, and a fantasy experience they will remember. And with Krafton throwing in its weight behind the vision, you know they mean business. Krafton's investment director, Mike Hong, even said Republic Games is all about taking interactive storytelling to the next level, with player freedom and meaningful choices at the core. That's a huge promise in today's crowded RPG market, but if anyone can deliver, it's Williams and his team. Now, details on their first project are still under wraps, but we've got some pretty solid hints. Based on Williams' track record, we can expect deeply immersive storytelling, rich characters, and those meaningful choices that actually change the world you're playing in. This new RPG is shaping up to be a fantasy experience you'll never forget. Williams' departure from Quantic Dream earlier this year raised a lot of eyebrows. I mean, he was driving force behind their iconic interactive dramas. But this new chapter with Republic Games feels like his way of pushing the boundaries even further. Bold move, right? So I'm going to be honest with you guys for a second. This one might be the most exciting RPG projects in years. Between Krafton's backing and the sheer talent at Republic Games, they're setting themselves up to redefine what RPGs can be. So, if you're into compelling narratives and player-driven experiences, keep your eyes open on this studio. Up next, we have 2K Games motion capture studio votes to unionize. Workers at 2K Games Motion Capture Studio in California just made history by voting to unionize. Yep, this is the first time ever that a motion capture team in the gaming industry has successfully formed a union. The vote was supervised by the National Labor Relations Board, and the results were clear. 15 votes in favor, 6 against. So now we officially have the 2K MOCAP union. This new union will operate under the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, or IATSE for short. You've probably heard of them. They represent a ton of entertainment professionals, and they're calling this a milestone moment in gaming. Now, if you don't know much about the 2K Motion Capture Studio, they're based in Petaluma, California, and they've had a hand in some of the biggest titles from Take-Two Interactive like NBA 2K, WWE 2K, and even BioShock. The realism and immersion you love is in those games. That's all thanks to these motion capture artists. But unionizing is just the first step. The real work begins now. As the 2K MOCAP union starts negotiating with management to hammer out a contract, what are they fighting for? Well, they're fighting for job security, fair pay, and better working conditions. It's not just about their current team. It's about setting a standard for future workers too. Matthew Peterson, one of the animators at 2K, summed it up perfectly. This campaign, while challenging, has been driven by empathy and a shared vision of fairness. I look forward to negotiating in good faith with Take-Two and hope our actions inspire others in the industry to organize and fight for the protections necessary to thrive. This is bigger than just one studio, though. IATSE President Matthew D. Loeb called it a victory for the entire video game industry. He said, "It's a sign that things are changing. Workers are standing up for their rights and fighting for fairness, equity, and respect in the workplace." And honestly, he's not wrong. This could be the beginning of a huge shift in an industry that's been under fire for years over things like long hours and burnout. So what's next? The union will sit down with management and negotiate their first contract, and you can bet everyone in the gaming world will be watching. If this team can secure better conditions, it could set a new standard across the board. If you really think about it, it's actually really inspiring. These motion capture artists are paving the way for a brighter, fairer future in gaming, and their success could ripple out to benefit professionals everywhere in the industry. Coming up next, Unknown 9 developer Reflector Entertainment lays off 18% of staff. Reflector Entertainment has announced significant layoffs, letting go up to 18% of its workforce. This comes just a month after the release of their debut game, Unknown 9 Awakening. According to Reflector, the design is part of a strategic shift as the studio moves into a new development phase. They stated that the employees let go were not assigned to roles that our active projects require. But let's be real, that has raised some serious questions, especially since Reflector was positioning Unknown 9 as a foundation of a whole transmedia universe. We're talking podcasts, novels, comics, the works. But to their credit, Reflector says they're trying to support those affected. They're offering severance packages and access to medical, emotional, and career planning resources. But even with those measures, it's hard not to feel uneasy about what this means for the studio's future. Reports of the layoffs first surfaced from journalist Ethan Gatch on Blue Sky, and the news was quickly confirmed by employees on LinkedIn. Some big names at the studio, like narrative designer Anna Karina Bermudez and brand manager Manu Denaval, are now looking for opportunities. And it's not just one area. Departments like QA, marketing, art, and narrative design have all been hit as well. It's a tough blow for Reflector, especially considering the ambitious scope of Unknown 9 the game, published by Bandai Namco. It was supposed to launch over the summer, but it got delayed, finally coming out on October 18th. Unfortunately, the reception was mixed, and now there's speculation about how it's performed commercially. The thing is, Reflector had big plans. They were acquired by Bandai Namco back in 2020 and were being toured as a rising star in narrative-driven gaming. The Unknown 9 franchise was supposed to be the redefined action-adventure games with a multimedia approach. But with these layoffs and the tepid response to their first game, it seems that the vision might be in jeopardy. And Reflector isn't the only studio feeling the heat right now. Just this week, Thought Pennies announced layoffs after losing project funding. It's part of a larger trend in the gaming industry where studios are juggling tighter budgets, shifting market demands, and sky-high player expectations. So what's next for Reflector? Well, between you and me, I think that's kind of a tough question because a lot is riding on Unknown 9 Awakening. If it finds its footing and builds an audience, maybe Reflector can stabilize. But if it doesn't, this could be a start of a bigger unraveling. Bandai Namco as their publisher and stakeholder will definitely play a huge role in what happens next. For now, it's more so of a waiting game. Fans of Unknown 9 in the industry at large are left wondering, can Reflector bounce back from this? Or is this just the beginning of an end to their ambitious visions? All right, finishing with that last one in the shuffled deal, we are going to transition into the gaming sidebar now. It's going to be brief, but we still have some important news to share. Ubisoft is once again in the hot seat, this time over its return to office mandate, or RTO. This has been brewing for months, but now it's hit a whole new level with a lawsuit. So what exactly is the policy? Well, it's 3-day-a-week in-office requirement announced back in September. Now it sounds simple enough, right? Not so much. Employees are saying it completely goes against the promises Ubisoft made during the pandemic when they embraced remote work as the future. This backlash actually started last year at their Montreal office during a soft launch of the policy. Workers there were already unhappy, feeling like management broke on what they had been told. Fast forward, and it's escalated into strikes, walkouts, and now legal action. Here's where it gets serious. The unions at Ubisoft Barcelona teamed up with Spain's Confederation General del Trabajo, CGT, to file a lawsuit. Their argument? The RTO policy blindsided them. They say management didn't even bother negotiating or even addressing concerns about how the shift back in the office would work. They're not just pushing back, they're fighting for a collective agreement that lets the Barcelona team keep working remotely. But Barcelona isn't alone. Over in France, workers at Ubisoft's HQ have been striking, backed by the French game union STJV. And in October, employees at Ubisoft Milan joined the protest, saying the RTO policy might force some of them to quit altogether. You can tell this isn't just about one studio, though. It's a global wave of frustration with how Ubisoft has handled this transition. And if that wasn't enough, well, Ubisoft is dealing with a lot of other lawsuits. Just recently, 2 California players sued over the sudden delisting of the crew, which we covered in our last video. Basically, they locked players out of the game even though they paid for it. Oh, and let's not forget about the October lawsuit about user data allegedly being shared with Meta. It's like every time you turn around, there's another battle with them. So where does Ubisoft go from here? Well, that's the big question. They haven't responded to the Barcelona lawsuit yet, but this could be a massive implication. Not just for them, but for the gaming industry as a whole. If the unions win, it might set a precedent for remote work rights in gaming. For now, though, the company is juggling strikes, lawsuits, and increasingly unhappy employees. Do you blame them? The real challenge, though, is trying to figure out how to meet their workers halfway while still hitting those corporate goals. Otherwise, this divide could reshape how studios like Ubisoft operate in this post-pandemic world. And at the end of the day, it's desks versus screens, and it's far from over from here.
Next up, new game releases. Okay, and that's going to do it for The Pulse. Throw us a heart in the comments if you made it this far. Be sure to hit that like button if you found this episode informative, and subscribe if you want to stay up to date with the latest news around the gaming industry. As always, my name is June, and this is The Pulse. See you next time. Later.